REIS, Real Estate Investors Society.
Case studies, videos, and the like.
Did the entire renovation.
I do commercial real estate.
REIS, the business of real estate investing.
There's a lot of property out there that we're
Have to be careful with each one.
My name is Byron Hall. I'm with Century 21 Trademark Realty and also have an investment company called Optimum Capital Investments. I've been an active licensed broker for 22 years now in the metropolitan area.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, what type of real estate investing do you specialize in?
I actually specialize in residential and small commercial real estate in the local area.
Okay. Now, you said in the local area, what's your demographic range that you, geographic range, I'm sorry, that you look to invest in?
Actually, I don't really have a geographic range. I focus on numbers. If numbers make sense, I'll do the transaction. If it means even traveling, that will, the numbers that we work out will certainly dictate whether it's worth pursuing or not.
Okay. Now, what makes you different from other real estate investors?
Well, in most cases, it's because I'm willing to do what a lot of agents really are not willing to do. I used to, just coming into the business, that's actually where I saw a real opportunity for me to kind of stand out, because just listening to a lot of realtors, I always said they were like a lot of plain vanilla realtors out there. I consider myself like Baskin and Robbins. You give me a scenario, I guarantee you, I can show you at least 3 ways to get a transaction done. Now, you may not like one of the 3 ways, but at least I will show you 3 ways that it can be done. Whereas some agents, if you don't fit in one particular like category, some think that you can't do it. But again, it all has to do with training and experience. That's what I've come to realize. Okay.
Now, this particular market right now, what is the investment strategy that you focus on? Short sale or buy and hold or renovate? Is there any particular strategy that you focus on primarily?
Actually, those are all good strategies, and I don't focus on any one particular one. That's always a decision for either most of my clients to make. But for me personally, again, I look at the deal itself, and situation will always dictate. And when I say situation, it depends on a lot of things. You know, the volume of transactions that I'm working for customers or clients, or my purse strings, or so to speak, you know, what have you. But for the most part, if whenever you purchase a property, you should always have, as far as I'm concerned, more than one exit strategy. Because if you purchase with one intent, and let's just say you have to execute a plan B, I think it's just a viable thing to do. And if the first option or your first course of action doesn't work, it just makes sense to have it. So, for instance, if your goal started out to be, say, buy and flip, which I think is the most attractive to especially newer investors, if that doesn't work out, you should have purchased it correctly. If you purchase it correctly, if something happens where you need to bail out, you can actually sell it, say, to another investor and still make money.
Okay. Now, what would you say is one of your ways for building strategic relationships? What do you look for building strategic relationships?
I actually rely on the network. I mean, networking, obviously we're in a networking environment here, but to piggyback on what Nancy says, creating the relationships are critical, because one thing I do understand is being involved in when you look at any successful organization, yeah, you can, especially, entrepreneurs are infamous for trying to be everything and do everything, we want to be, run the entire show. That's one of the reasons you start to do business for yourself. But really, when you look at it, even the most successful, athletes or organizations in the country, or in the world for that matter, have coaches. People that, I look at people who are doing, businesses that like I do, and also better than I do. It makes me better. I'm continuously, of course, learning, and that gives me the opportunity to offer or to add value to what my customers and clients are expectations are. So I would definitely say the networking and staying current, what's going on, and making sure you're dealing with people that are doing good business, because that's a critical component to being, for longevity, at least in our business.
Okay. Now, what are some of the lessons you've learned as an investor throughout the years that if you had to start over from scratch now, that you would do differently or you would either do more of or stop doing altogether?
The biggest one would stop listening to people who are just talking about doing good business and pay more attention to the people who are doing good business. That would be number one. To do differently, I will probably pay more attention to, again, building my strategic team, because I mean that's the critical component. I mean, I believe everybody should do what they're good at. You know what I mean? If you're for me, my strengths are, you know, going out and finding, you know, like undervalued properties and things of that nature, negotiating, you know, price and terms that are favorable for my customers and clients. When it comes down to putting, you know, stacking bricks and mortar, I'm not really the guy. But if you twist my arm a little bit, I would try to assist you. But that's not where I'm going to be the most effective. You know what I mean? That's because, you know, I'm a nice guy. But part of the problem is trying to be a lot of things for a lot of different people as well. I mean, I'll help anybody out. I'm always willing to go the extra mile. But again, if you're going to be strategic about it, I think it's better if you find professionals who, you know, again, you want to. I mean, you can be again, you don't have to be the brightest person even to be the president of the United States. But if you surround yourself by people who are, you know, of course, intelligent and can bridge the gaps in the you know, things that you're lacking, I mean, you can run the world basically.
Now, our theme of the night is return on investment. And with that in mind, what would you say is the, if you don't mind sharing, obviously, what is the most you've made off of a real estate investment transaction? That's not too
Off of a single transaction?
Off a single transaction.
The most I've made is about $107,000, and that's exactly why I'm still here today as a real estate investor. I actually started through a late night infomercial type deal. I kind of cringed in there when but I do understand that's kind of not for everybody. But I was actually tenacious enough to continue, you know, moving on, and a couple of the individuals that I was initially involved in, I got to say, were a little shady. But then when I finally aligned myself with the deal, because actually that transaction was about to fall apart, and there was a you know, a gentleman that investor Ed Wilson is a gentleman that well, he's not in Florida, but he kind of came to my rescue and showed me, you know, how to, you know, correct the situation, and I made that money and never looked back. In fact, you know, I finished as I was telling, I think I shared with you earlier, I made enough money my freshman year in college to not be. I actually couldn't afford to work for the companies that were making me offers, you know, as a senior in school. So I was sold, you know, from the beginning, and I know it can be done. You know, whatever, you know, your specific goals and things are, if you just, you know, tenacity and, again, building the right relationships or what have you, I think you can be, you know, very successful. I mean, that's a number that is very attainable in our business, and I think that's one of the only businesses that I know you can make that much money legally, you know, in a short period of time.
Now, I like the way you say it legally. Now, one of the things that I want to ask you is this. A lot of investors always look for that magical number of 50% loan-to-value ratio. They want those deals of 40%. Now, what would you say as a seasoned investor, what is your baseline, or do you have a baseline that you will not purchase a real estate transaction on a loan-to-value ratio? Is there a number there? Is that a magic number? Or what do you use to make your investment decision?
I mean, normally a generic one I would say at least a 20% return on it. That's what I look for at least on. I mean, really, it's 25, but 20 would be acceptable. But obviously, that's going to differ from each investor's, you know, risk tolerance is going to be different, and, you know, what you can bring to the table. But there are a number of ways to, and this is what I alluded to earlier when I said making sure that you buy a property, you know, right. I'm always, you know, looking at contingent, and also my risk tolerance is very high, and I would be involved in a lot of transactions that I couldn't really advise a customer or client to be involved in. You know what I mean? I'm way more conservative when I'm dealing with other people's, you know, money and things of that nature. But yeah, my number would be that. But see, there are ways of, if you purchase right, you know, you have your baseline number. But if you're structured properly, I mean, you can still end up making higher returns just by, you know, fine tuning or, you know, along the way, you know, as you go.
Okay. Now, you also a member of REIS, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I am.
All right. Now, why did you join REIS?
I joined REIS in order to expand my network, just to, you know, meet individuals that again that are looking to do good business. Most of the I'm probably one of the newest members to REIS, but what I've found is just through my tenure throughout real estate that I've actually done business with a lot of individuals that were involved in the organization. So that was one of the main attractions for me. So I've actually been able to reconnect with individuals that I've done business with in the past, and I know these people to be, of course, ethical, knowledgeable, and basically stay on the cutting edge of their craft. And that's pretty much what's comforting about your team, knowing everybody's on top of their game. You know what I mean? If you're out here trying to be the best that you can be, it just makes sense to surround yourself with individuals who are doing the same things in their own respective industries.
Okay. Now, before I let you go, I got to ask you some tips that you want to give investors.
Absolutely.
So what would be a tip that you would give a real estate investor who wants to get started right now in this real estate market?
Okay, the biggest tip actually would be, again, I'm just wearing your coattail out, Nancy. I would say, again, certainly the strategic business relationships are key. Of course, your own, attitude, about the business. I mean, when you're involved in any, team building or like networking organizations, one thing I think a lot of investors, new or old for that matter, sometimes we forget about. We always thinking about that what's in it for me type thing. Always kind of sit down and assess like what you can bring to the table as well. You know what I mean? And don't try to. I mean, it's a universal principle as far as I'm concerned. The more you help others, literally, the more successful. I mean, you are. By default. But if you bring, of course, value. The questions I always ask myself is if everybody in the organization were just like me, what type of organization would it be? So I'm striving every day to, of course, make the new relationships, but I want to bring value to the table. I'm very confident and capable in my own personal ability, and I always tell people I can always sit back and tell you all the things I've done in the past or what have you, but to me, really, people don't care about that. They care about basically what can you do for me like right now, and I'm performance oriented. I'd rather, execute, let you see for yourself, and you make a decision on whether you want to be a part of our team or not. So I would just say again, the strategic relationship, of course,
all right.
The value that you bring to the table, and again, surround yourself with people who are positive and going to help you achieve the goals that you set for yourself as an investor, and they're going to hold you accountable.
Now, I love that philosophy. Got one last question for you here on the Spotlight, and that question is this: what would you say is the #1 business philosophy or strategy that has helped you maintain your success in real estate investing?
Well, I'll say training, constant training. Being able to stay current, on relevant terms and things of what's going on. So, again, going right back to building your nation. Your relationships and your organization. Training, tenacity, and will to win are like things that I kind of live by. And also, I think that is this you'll appreciate. This is what I think will make you successful and actually sustain your business. Sustainability is a big thing with my coach over here. So that is something that I live by as well. Because once you get the system in place, and again, it's not at that point it just begins it's duplicating your success.
I love that. Again, Mr. Byron Hall, thank you for being on the Spotlight.
Thanks for having me.